Welcome on, bienvenue, welcome to the United Nations of Horror. We're your hosts, Mark and Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Everything's fine here. Just in the throes
How's the
of
weather in the
winter.
UK?
Yeah, snow's been on the ground, or heavy frost been on the ground for like a week odd now. But
Oh,
nothing
wow.
too daunting, the pavements are clear and stuff like that. You just got to be careful where you walk. That's about it. But otherwise, it's been kind of sunny, which makes a change because it has been raining an awful lot in the UK. But it's sunny at the minute, or, yeah, relatively sunny anyway. So yeah, how about in your part of the world?
Oh man, well I'm here in beautiful Georgia, and we get variety here. Last night it was around 30 degrees, but then during the day it can go up to like 60 and some days 70. So you never really know what you're gonna get here, but it is variety, which is nice. So
Yeah. That's always good, right? Okay, so today we are continuing with our Tremors adventures, right? We've done 2 episodes so far, covering 1 and 2, and 3 and 4, and today we are covering 5 and 6, and we hope to have a follow-up episode to do the last one, number 7, which is called Shrieker Islands, shortly, in a week or so. We're
in,
hoping.
indeed,
So
yeah,
today we are covering Tremors 5 and Tremors 6. Now, to give this a bit of context, Tremors came out beginning of 1990. That's when that came out. Tremors 2 Aftershocks came out in 1996. So there was a 6-year gap, which is quite the gap for a
it
sequel.
is.
However,
Yeah,
it felt very much similar to in tone and so on to Tremors, didn't it? It was kind
it
of
did.
still
Yeah.
had that 80s, 90s kind of feel, so that was fine. And then we had Tremors 3, Back to Perfection, which again 5 years, so 2001. But again, I felt it was still kind of in the same wheelhouse and feel as the other films.
I did as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
They did
and
a good
then
job maintaining that.
and then the next one was a prequel, which is Tremors 4: The Legend Begins, made in 2004. Again, similar look and feel to the film, and while it was a western, it didn't feel tonally too different from the other films, did it?
I agree. It's
Yeah,
obviously these were done by the same studio, and it has that feel for sure.
yeah, indeed. There was also a TV series in 2003, which we're not going to cover, but there
Yeah, that's a
was.
little too much.
Yeah, but I believe Burt Gummer was in that. I believe I could be wrong, but I think Burt
I
Gummer as the
would.
character was in it.
That's awesome, and I would like to catch some of that sometime.
Actually, let's just have a quick look. If certainly if Bert's in it, it's kind of that's probably
Yeah,
worth a watch, right?
that's what
That's
I
probably
feel
worth a watch.
too.
Yes, Burt Gummer is one of the main characters in the TV series.
Oh, okay, well now I got to watch that too.
And apparently it picks up the story from the end of Tremors 3.
Oh,
So
tremendous!
and El Blanco, the big white graboid, is
Indeed,
a thing in it, and controlling El Blanco is part of the thing. So how about that? I'm just to see how
that's
many episodes
that's
there is.
great.
It is 2 seasons. Oh my
Oh
goodness!
wow,
So
okay.
there's 26 episodes of this. There was 2 seasons of Tremors. I will probably look at my satellite box and see if Tremors ever airs, and just say it to record any that do air. I might just
Yeah,
do that and see where it goes. And you know what? I can believe it's not bad if we have Bert in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like
So
to check it out actually, and I think I said the opposite at the beginning of this, like I don't think I can take any more Tremors, but
no,
we're
no,
both pretty
no.
like invested in it now, so
Well,
maybe a
get
little bit
this.
of
One of the recurring characters in it is played by Christopher Lloyd. So
time.
Christopher Lloyd turns up,
Oh,
and
great!
we
Wow,
get occasional guest characters that include Michael Rooker. Um,
nice.
I can never sure how to pronounce this, but Vivica Fox, I think it is Vivica Fox.
Yeah, I believe
Um,
that's right.
yeah, and no one else really jumps out at me, to be honest. But that's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I believe it
Uh,
was a sci-fi original series. I mean, I just never knew about it, and honestly, I've always liked the monster movies, but I never really knew about Tremors until we started covering this. Like I always think, oh, eight-legged freaks and the old kind of atomic 1950s and 60s giant monster movies, things like that. But Tremors is really it's big in the monster genre, and I didn't know how big of a following it had until we started doing these.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Anyway, so those first four films went from like 1990 to 2004 with fits and starts, sometimes 4 or 5 years between each one, right? And then
Indeed.
we jumped 11 years until we got to Tremors 5. So that was quite the jump. Now, this appears to be, well, it's shot with digital cameras. It's not shot with film at all. And it's got that look to it, hasn't it? It's kind of got that look. And I have to say, 5, 6, and 7 were 2015, 2018, 2020. So they are sort of akin to each other, and they share the same director as well. So they probably are going to turn out to have a much more as feel the same kind of thing, and they do feel significantly different in look and feel. And the emphasis on certain things than the others. For example, I found them a lot more actiony, and the digital film was kind of colder looking. It's not got that warm film kind of vibe. It's got a kind of starkness. Did you find that?
I found the same thing to be true, and also I think they tried to hit a lot of like kind of comedy cues that sort of the other films did. And I don't know, man. Something just felt off to me. I can't really put my finger on it. But
I think it's got a fundamental problem. The second one in particular highlighted the problems to me than the first one. The first one kind of worked because they had more interesting characters and diverse scenes. But it was the Tremors 6 had way more all the same kind of stuff. And it kind of highlighted some of the issues. The director's very frenetic. He cannot keep a camera still, and he cannot resist editing to the nth degree. And that was to a point. It was like I had to stop 6 and stop for a while because it was kind of giving me a headache. But at 5, I didn't find it so much of a problem. It really precipitated 6. However, there are still things to like about it. I'm not just going to say bad things about it.
Oh, yeah.
5 in particular, I quite liked.
We have a situation in Africa.
There's been another attack.
You've got Graboids. Worms. Sure as hell ain't Mickey Mouse.
From Universal Pictures comes the next chapter in the Tremors saga.
The bitch is back!
Load every gun! Come to Africa. We'll have some laughs, see some game.
Tremors 5, Bloodlines.
I think you'll find this useful.
Where'd you get this?
You don't want to know.
I like your style.
Now, I like the opening where Burt is doing a web series. He's kind of a survivalist. And it's kind of funny that he's doing his own thing. He's kind of doing this web series, and he's obviously got a bit of a following. But this biker guy just turns up in the middle out of nowhere and sort of says, "I can help promote you and make you great. You're the only monster hunter out there. You should be doing better," and all this kind of stuff. And Burt is not convinced, but this guy sort of talks him into it. The guy's called the character's called Travis Welker, played by Jamie Kennedy.
Interesting character. I don't think we know what to make of him much at first. He's just sort of like, you just think, man, he's like Bert's biggest fan, right?
Yeah, and he's kind of a loudmouthy action dude in the sense of he's brash and stuff. He's not boastful kind of guy. He's just, he's intense. Let's put it that way. And Bert's like, but what happens is there appears to be Graboids or Shriekers in South Africa. So they go and people turn up to try and recruit Burt to go. Now Bert's not interested at first, which is weird because that's what he does. But he kind of says, "I will pay for all your show's costs for like 2 years, And I think Travis then negotiates a slightly better deal, which gets him on board, right? Which gets him on board. So basically, Burt and Travis go off to South Africa. We do see an attack on like this archaeological dig. There's like an archaeological dig, which is kind of cool, where they're obviously revealing big, weird bones, which presumably are graboids, but I didn't know graboids had bones. So
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, do worms don't have bones?
Worms don't have bones. They definitely don't have bones. But maybe graboids aren't just worms. All right? Who knows?
That's true. That's true. They do morph into ass-blasters and everything else.
And they're basically they're saying that ass-blasters are around. There's the old litany where there's ass-blasters, there's graboids, because it's part of the life cycle, right? And we do see this couple kind of cute-looking sort of archaeologists sort of making love in a shower. It's very discreet, but that's what they're doing. But it's an outdoor shower and a graboid gets them kind of thing.
They don't last very long.
But it says he'll do it, and he turns up with this massive array of guns, which instantly get impounded because of the South African strict laws about guns. And no one mentioned this, so he's a bit peeved. And they start giving him, we've got these guns, and they're just basic kind of guns, right? It's a few guns.
Yeah, I feel like this is pretty realistic as to what would happen if anyone tried to go into South Africa from the States. Having Burt's kind of arsenal of insane weaponry.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of like the mythology that's kind of set up in this film. What saves this film, I think, is kind of bits like that, and there's some quite good script moments, and there's quite good interactions. I think the guy playing Travis is pretty decent. We've seen a lot of characters like this in the various Tremors films, so we're kind of used to them, aren't we?
You know who he reminded me of a little bit, Mark?
Who's that?
Daryl from Walking Dead. He kind of has that, like, to me, a little bit of the Daryl vibe, but like not quite as, I guess, cool of a character as they make Daryl. Daryl's the cool guy. This guy's like the wannabe Daryl that you see at maybe like Burger King at 12 a.m. and
he'd be like Daryl if he had a touch of Jack Black about him or something. Yes. Right.
Oh, that's a good way.
That's kind of it. In addition, Burt kind of makes a friend. There's this like old pilot, old tough South African pilot called Den.
I like that guy.
Who calls Burt Bot. And he goes, wait, Bot? Thinking he's mispronouncing it. He goes, no, it means friend in Afrikaans or something like that. So he just calls Burt Bot. And Bert's fine with that.
But he doesn't like to be called Pops. Don't call Burt Pops.
He doesn't like there's lots of things. Bert's getting progressively grumpy, and that his grumpiness really comes to the fore in number 6, which we'll get to, which made me laugh quite a lot actually. But he's getting progressively grumpy as he's getting older. Michael Gross is getting older, but it kind of works with this role, doesn't it? He's like a tough, grizzled old dude. That's what he is, really.
Yeah, I like the kind of evolution of Burt, throughout the series. You kind of get him as just the side character in the first 2, and then he sort of ends up coming into the main role, but it feels natural, like a natural progression. And he's just a very likable character. And all credit goes to Michael Gross. He does a great job portraying him.
He does a great job, yes, he does. Also, there's like a lady doctor with a daughter who Travis gets to know, and he's kind of got the hots for this lady. She's also got another guy that's interested in her, who's a nice guy. He's not like an evil rival or anything. He's a perfectly nice guy, but he's more also interested in her. And then she starts talking about like the sort of mythology of these creatures. She says, yes, we have always hunted these. And she mentions the Shriekers hunt at night. Because of their heat vision, they get a benefit from hunting at night. The sun confuses them. So that sets up this really interesting idea that graboids control the land by day and Shriekers control the air by night. It's kind of the deal, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought so too. Kind of changes things up a little bit.
Yeah, we don't really see Shriekers much in this one. It's more the Ass-Blasters and Graboids really. That's really what's going on here. And there's a scene where there's a tribal dance where the warriors are dancing about hunting the Ass-Blasters, and there's an African name for these things too, which probably means Ass-Blaster in that particular language.
I believe it's Afrikanese. I know someone from South Africa, and I didn't know South Africa had sort of like a separate language, so I found
it's Afrikaans. It's based on Dutch.
Yeah, there you go.
It's Afrikaans, but there's also the native languages, like Swahili and so on.
Indeed,
that's really what I was referring to when I was talking about this. So also there's other characters there's characters that get them involved. We find out one of the characters to recruit, but is actually a poacher, and he wants either one of the creatures or the egg of one of the creatures to sell, which really pisses off Burt.
He's a total scumbag because he's the one at the beginning who gets him over there, and it turns out he is definitely not who he said he was, even a little bit.
Yeah. So, what did you think of the CG and so on in this?
I felt like this is a lot better than Tremors 6. For some reason, I don't know why the CG in 5 felt more. It felt a little bit more smooth.
I think they chose their settings well. There's a lot of it in the dark, or there's one bit in a cave where it's all lit with red. But when it's in those environments, it looked really good. Actually, it did look really good. When it's daylight, it kind of doesn't work.
Right.
One plus is they do at least feel like they got weight. Some CG. Sometimes you see the creatures moving in some CG films, and it looks like the physics is all wrong and the weight. I'm thinking of the 1998 Godzilla. For example, the creature movements are awful because it just doesn't look like there's any weight to it. They look like they're just floating or something.
Oh yeah, it's a rough one to watch.
yeah. Whereas this was all right. It wasn't bad. I was particularly impressed by the bit where Travis is stuck in a cave with a shrieker and it's all lit red. And it looked really cool. And they're kind of going for a bit more of like an Alien or Pitch Black kind of vibe in these films rather than the Tremors run away and they'll erupt and we run away. They're trying to build a bit of tension around the attacks, and the heat vision does look a bit like the Predator heat vision too.
Oh yeah, I thought the same thing. Actually, when that scene came up, I was like, oh, there's Predator.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's well done. I agree with you that the environment makes a big difference. Because I didn't mind the CG and me, I think both of us obviously are practical effects guys. We prefer that, but these are not bad, especially considering the time period. We are getting into like a modern era here. It does feel more digital, but yeah, I actually cannot complain about the CG effects.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
Yeah, it's obviously made with digital cameras, this, which probably integrates into CG better than film, I would imagine. So there is one very odd through line through both of these films. I'm just going to say one word and get your reaction, and that is piss. It comes up in both films, which is really weird.
They like that a lot, don't they?
Yeah, there's some sort of weird. I think the director might be a bit kinky, to be honest. At one point, Burt gets trapped, not trapped. He gets put in a cage by the poacher, doesn't he? And he's just left in the bright sun, and you kind of start seeing Burt going crazy, and it's like a montage of Burt getting crazier and crazier. Don't know how long he's been left in the sun, but at one point he pisses in a cup and pours it over his head and sort of says, "No, this is all right. This is how the Maasai warriors keep cool." And then the next scene, he's drinking it. And then the next bit after that, a lion comes up and pisses all over him.
Right. I was like, what are they doing here?
What is going on? It was supposed to be, but it was just so weird. It was so weird.
It was strange.
Then Burt kind of manages to get out, right? Travis, I think, finds him. Yeah.
He's in the cage, and then he connects him to the truck. You know, the cage with him in the truck. Anyway, they have a crash, and Burt finally gets free. But man, that scene is just a little too gross for my taste, I guess.
And it comes back again. The theme comes back again in 6.
Yes,
too. We'll
it does.
They get chased by a graboid who Burt calls the Queen Bitch. So there's shades of aliens in this, get away from me. And we also find out there's been yet another evolution or something that wasn't apparent before, which is the tongues, the grabby tongues, or the things that come out of the mouth with the independent mouths. Those can detach and operate on their own, which that's
what
new.
Did you think of that?
Yeah, I didn't mind. Yeah, I was fine.
I mean, I guess at this point,
silly,
not,
but
right?
yeah.
It's like a tentacle almost at this.
Yeah.
I think they even call it a tentacle at one point. But it's different, Yeah,
and at this point, Eric gets eaten, the poacher, so that's fine.
Oh yeah.
So they know that this nest is in this cave, and they want to go destroy it with explosives. And they contact Den, the old warrior sort of
helicopter guy.
And he turns up and starts fighting. He comes with a grenade launcher of all three, or a massive. I don't know if it's a massive shotgun or if it's a grenade. It kind of it could be either. I'm not quite sure, but there's lots of shooting going on.
Some kind of RPG, I think. But man, it totally works for his character. I was like, yep, he's a guy who would definitely have that.
Now, let me get this right. I might be confused, but doesn't Den get eaten at one point, but then fight his way out with his grenade launcher?
He does.
And kills the graboid from the... A bit like Burt did.
Indeed,
in an earlier film. And then at this point, we find a shock moment from Travis about who he actually is. It turns out he's actually Burt's son from a one-night stand. And Travis knew Burt was his father, and because he did this web series, he wanted to be just like his own dad, right? So there was
Indeed.
that. So Burt's like, I'm not buying into this, but he's kind of sort of convinced. I'm not.
Yeah,
Burt's a good guy at heart, so he's not going to just deny it. But
he doesn't want to believe it at first, though. He's like,
like
because they don't get along,
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those buddy cop things where they don't get along at first, isn't it? It's one of those.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Now, the Ass-Blasters and I think a Graboid kind of attack the village or people in sort of huts. But they also then discover that they're being chased. The daughter of the woman he's interested in, she's actually hiding a Graboid egg, which is why the Graboids are after them, I think.
Right.
So
I think they've blown up the other kind of location, so it's like the last egg they have, and they construct sort of a trap to try and use lightning to kill the thing, which relies on an awful lot of coincidences and time. It does,
but it happens, right? Yeah, that's how they kind of destroy it in the end, by luring it with the egg and using lightning bolts attached to sort of this metal trap to blow up everything. And then we cut to Burt and Travis having been together on the web series, right? Talking about working together. And I do like there was a tagline in it. What was it? Here comes the father, here comes the son.
That was great.
That made me laugh. So I kind of like that credits end credit sequence. So they become a pair of monster hunters, which is kind of cool. So
I thought it was kind of neat.
Yeah. So what was your feelings about this one?
I thought this one was okay. I think it is one of the weaker entries in the franchise, but we haven't got to 6 yet, so I'll leave.
We'll rank them all once we do 6. But
I don't think it's bad. What did you think?
A bit of a step down, but not too far. I quite like Burt. I was quite surprised about the tonal change, the way it looked. It felt much more MTV, whereas the other films are much more traditional kind of films. And I didn't mind it. It was fine. So it just took a bit easier. It was more bloody, than we used to, perhaps.
Oh yeah,
as well.
you get the severed hand at the beginning.
And I certainly felt like they'd watched stuff like Pitch Black and Aliens and stuff like that, and kind of was a bit influenced by that when they went into this. It's a lot less kiddie friendly than the other films.
Yeah,
I would say. But yeah, and the whole piss thing as well is like, whoa.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. That's
now apparently the original script it was set in Australia, not South Africa, so that would have been fun. And it was going to be called Gummer Down Under.
I love that name.
Yeah,
by the
what
way.
a title! What a title! It's a shame that didn't work out. That's a hell of a title.
Yeah, there's a little controversy with this film since it, the studio behind the original film basically they're not involved in this, and Universal went ahead and kept the rights. The original director was writing that script apparently, but then Universal got it, and the same screenwriter from, I believe it's Tremors 4 actually sort of modified the script for Tremors 5, and they wanted to make it in Africa. So it sounds like the studio that did the original Tremors was not real happy that Universal kind of took their rights away, I guess, from the Tremors series.
Yeah, okay.
And it's kind of a shame. I've read a little bit about it. I haven't done a ton of research, but it still is a good film, even though it's not the same studio. It's still a fun film. I'll say that.
It's a fun film. What would you give? Should we score?
Yeah, let's go ahead and score this one.
What would you give this one out of, I don't know, 5 or 10, whichever you prefer?
Oh, out of 10, I would probably give it a just a straight 6.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would give it. Yes.
Yeah.
It was fine.
It's fun.
It was a little weaker than the ones we've seen so far, but not too far. Okay, let's move on to 6.
How'd you get this number? You from the government? Impossible.
Improbable.
Ass-Blasters in the Arctic?
Welcome to the Boyd Canyon Arctic Research Station.
If you've got Ass-Blasters, you have Graboids.
Incoming! Go!
Take a couple of tablespoons
Of cement and harden the hell up, huh?
Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell.
How do you not die? You never die.
Interestingly set in the Arctic, which is mad. A mad place to set this. But actually, it doesn't. After a while, they stop even bothering putting snow on the screen. It's just they're fighting on a rocky place. So it's like, why did you even set this in the Arctic? But it's something to do with hot springs, changing the nature of the underlying soil and making it suitable for graboids. That's kind of it. This was made in 2018, made by the same director, Don Michael Paul, and it came out on Netflix on 2018. So it was basically no cinema release, as was 5 wasn't a cinema release either.
Yeah, I think this is when Netflix was sort of in their big, all right, reboot films that were kind of popular phase, and so Tremors got that treatment. But it is still a Universal film, despite being, I guess, funded by Netflix.
Yeah, was it funded by Netflix? Maybe they just pulled the rights once it was done, though. Who knows? Or a bit of this and a bit of that. One way or the other. I mean, they've done some great ones like that. I mean, if you want to see a really good example where they've rebooted a franchise successfully, I think it's Netflix. Check out Shaft from 2019. It's amazing.
Oh, really?
Absolutely amazing film. It's so good. Because it's really funny watching the evolution of... it's basically parodying the evolution of action heroes in the... it starts with like the current one, who's fairly young, who goes and talks to people and sort of reasons with them. Then it's his dad is Samuel Jackson Shaft, right? Who's a lot tougher and will rock up with a shotgun and stuff like that. But it's full of rock salt, so he doesn't like kill people, but he really hurts them.
Right.
And then finally, Grandpa gets involved, who just turns up with AK-47s and shoots people. And it's really funny to watch. And,
man.
you know, he's a proper 70s action guy.
Yeah.
And then like a 90s action guy, and then a 2010s action guy. And it's amazing. So big recommend that is for
Okay.
me. You
I'm
will
gonna check
really
that one
enjoy
out.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really liked it when I saw it. I was laughing my
cool.
head off. And, you know, they were using... like the younger one was like when he was saying certain words that I won't repeat, he was saying, "I prefer you not to use that phrase." He goes, "Are you kidding me?" And Samuel Jackson's like, "Seriously?" And things like that, you know, it's really funny. And then the older
man.
Shaft is Grandpa, who's like got this love den, and he presses a button on his finger, and all this cabinet opens up with all these massive guns,
Man,
and he just keeps them in
that's
his house.
great.
And
Feels
they
like
all
Burt,
wear
right?
leather jackets and like complain about leather jackets and things like that.
Man.
And they're all acting tough, but as soon as like the women get involved, they kind of go quiet. It's really funny. Anyway,
I'm gonna have to watch this.
yeah. Anyway, like, I think it might tell you something about what we think about Tremors 6. The fact we talked about it.
I think so.
Okay, so Tremors 6 it came out in 2018. And now it's well, let's just get our thoughts on this out, and then maybe talk about these. What was your feelings on it?
Oh man! Right off the bat, the CG, in my opinion, is noticeably not as good, and maybe it is because of the backgrounds. You know, you see them in the plane coming into the kind of Arctic setting, and it's one of the Ass-Blasters, and just oh man! Right from the beginning, I was like, it really just does not look good, and I feel like that's kind of a trend throughout the entire film. Like the CG is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, apart from the odd moments, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
The problem I had with this, which was not a problem I really picked up in 5, and considering it's the same director, it's kind of interesting is that the entire film feels like it's a climax. It's shot like it's the climax of an action sequence. The entire film. So
it never slows down.
Every single thing is like, I swear there isn't a single cut in this film which lasts more than a second. It constantly cuts scenes, even just dialogue scenes. Instead of it being a static camera we see in the actors, it cuts. Oh, this potential.
Way too much.
And there's all this sort of actiony music all the time, all the way through. And like I say, I had to kind of stop after an hour and just take a break.
I kind of wish I had done that too, actually.
Yeah,
I think I would have enjoyed
it. I did enjoy it quite a bit when I came back to it. I quite liked the finale and some of the stuff that happens. But I had to like ignore the fact it was all this massive cut in it, and it was all handheld camera too, so it adds that kind of shaky effect that can give you a headache. So I had a real problem with it. I also wasn't sure about, there was a certain change in Burt's character, but I grew to like it as the film went on, where he basically turned into like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. He was just barking things at people, statements at people, and shouting at them and haranguing them. He was proper grumpy old man.
Yeah. Grumpy old
But
man.
Actually, I kind of like that. I wasn't sure what to make of it at first, but I liked it better and better as the film went on. It made me laugh. The strengths of the film, though, I think, was some of the actors were quite good, and some of the actual script. Sorry, and what I mean by that is the dialogue between characters was actually a lot of fun.
It was, yeah.
The problem was the staging and how they did all the action. It was kind of headache inducing, and I was quite surprised when I went back and looked at it afterwards that it was the same director. The guy that directed 6 also directed 5, because 5 didn't feel that frenetic. It felt much more balanced and like well put together film. This felt like a video. Someone who made rock videos was given the job and did the whole thing in that style. That's the problem I have with it.
I very much agree with you on all that. It's very, as you say, MTV kind of feel, just overcut, really. And also just there's too much going on, really, on screen all the time. But Burt and... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think if you showed anyone like a 30-second clip of any point in this film, they would say, "Oh, well, that must be near a massive action. That must be coming to a massive action scene, or that must be the end of the film," because it's made that way.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate because when the actual climax of the film does happen, it's kind of I don't know. It doesn't really work. It's like, oh, okay, we've already had 10 of these,
Yeah.
So
it's a poorly balanced film.
it is,
In many
yeah.
respects.
But
I
the
also
acting is great.
Oh yeah, I particularly liked Bert and Travis, but I
Yes,
also
me too.
liked the two main women in it, which was now one of them was the daughter of Val from the first Tremors, right?
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting throwback, actually.
Yeah. So that actress was really good, and there was a doctor, a lady who was a doctor, a scientist. She was good. So those all worked. The rest of them were kind of skin jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were sort of interchangeable.
Just cannon fodder a lot of the people for sure, and forgettable, But that's kind of the case in all of the Tremors films. I mean, you're always going to have people that are sort of cannon fodder. But yeah, some of them are definitely less memorable than other Tremor films.
But there was a lot of moments in this where I did laugh through the dialogue or what was going on screen. The dialogue in particular made me laugh. There's one point Bert's giving a prep talk and he says to a guy, he says, "You want your say after me. I've got steel balls. I've got stainless steel. My balls are so hard that they're in the Guinness Book of Balls."
Oh, that was funny.
That did make me laugh quite a lot. And there's also some other things. There's one point Bert just keeps surviving all these attacks, and Travis goes, "You never die. How comes you never die?" It's really funny. There's also a subplot where Bert, we find out, interesting callback to, I think, the third film, where we find out Bert's got a weird graboid parasite in his system that came from when he was ingested by a graboid, which I think was number 3, wasn't it? When he went in in the oil drum, or was it 2? One of those.
I think it
anyway,
was 3. Yeah, it was early on, and they do a little cutback to it, which I thought was
they do. Yeah, it was cool.
I was like, it's interesting though that he never had any problems in like Africa or anything like that.
No, but they do specifically say the gestation times are very, very long.
That's true. Yeah.
But essentially, he has to extract or get something extracted from a graboid to help create the antibodies to cure him, which is nonsense, absolute nonsense. But
absolutely.
We also find out there's some sort of secret research base, which Bert's very suspicious that they're developing graboids as bioweapons.
Right.
DARPA is. But it turns out they're more interested in the hot water events that's going on underneath the ground that's causing the graboids to sort of appear. So there is that. But also Bert makes also we see Bert in, well, it says it's perfection, but it's just a shack in a desert, right? And it's Chang's market, right?
The old store.
So they're kind of suggesting perfection's been razed to the ground, but Bert's still got Chang's old store in the same place. But no, it isn't. It's just a hut in the middle of the desert, right?
We don't actually see the town of perfection in this, unfortunately.
No.
But there again, I think building 2 towns like that probably would have not been in this film's budget.
No.
I don't think they had enough budget for that. But I did like the little scene out in the desert with him and his son, and then how Bert goes up to take a nap on the roof in the Nevada desert. It's just like, oh my goodness, Bert.
Yeah, there's stuff like they have to I mentioned piss earlier. At one point, they bait the worms by getting a guy to go up a tower and pissing on the ground as they're.
That was weird.
That seemed like just use any vibrational device. Do not. Why would you ask someone to do that? It's so weird. It's such a
strange.
Weird thing. It's a weird bit.
And I mean, I like my gore films and everything. I don't mind gore, blood and guts, and all that. But this is just it feels kind of out of place to me. It feels
Yeah,
out of place
like
to you?
I say, well, it did, and it kind of thinking, hold on, is there a theme here? Five
Yeah.
had the piss. Now, is Shrieker Island going to have piss as well? I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe
It's
the
so
director
weird
was-
because you just don't have that much unless it's like comedy, like in Disgusting, like Austin Powers or something, right?
Yeah,
it's
which
just
is
so
it's funny
weird.
in there.
Yeah.
Like, but it's not done well enough here to really. It's just
No,
strange.
it's just
like,
odd. It's just odd.
Yeah,
They figure
It's
out
just-
how to hook the graboid, don't they? They basically figure out a clever plan for how to hook it, and they get it in a container.
yeah.
But they still have to extract this thing to cure Burt from this disease that's affected him. And this scene did make me laugh. Basically, Travis has to crawl into it. They basically managed to get his mouth pulled open and held open, and Travis crawls in there to extract that, which is super gross but
It
funny.
is. Yeah, see, that was done well.
I like the reaction shots of all the people watching. Said, "Oh man, if someone crawled down my throat with a big metal prod,
Yeah, it's just
So it's
throwing
really
up on
annoying
him,
this
essentially.
graboid. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
insta-cure Burt with this solution, which is again ridiculous, I have to say. So essentially, they've got this graboid with its mouth prized open inside this container, and then the DARPA guy rocks up and says, "Yeah," and apparently, Burt and Travis made some deal that if they call the graboid, they get exact tax-free exemption for life.
Oh yeah,
from the
that
US
was funny because the guy was up trapped, and so if you know, pretty much because they have that thing at the beginning too with the taxes, and I wasn't sure who the gentleman was who came in to collect the taxes. I think he may have been from like Tremors 2 or 3, one of the
He
agents.
kind of looked familiar, but I couldn't place him.
I wasn't sure. Yeah, but
And he felt like he was going to be in the rest of the film, didn't he? But he wasn't at all. He felt like he was
Yeah.
going to become a character because he was quite good. He was quite a well-played scene and stuff. It was kind of
Yeah.
fun.
just like a little cameo almost.
And it's funny, we see Burt, like, it looks like he's hunting, but he's just shooting at a little target with like a BB gun, in
Yeah.
effect. So that kind of made me laugh. So they get the paperwork.
Old man Burt in this one for sure.
Yeah, and oh man, he's so grumpy. He is so grumpy.
Yes,
he's just
this is-
shouting at people, and it just made me laugh. But it made me laugh. And I have to say, Travis looks a lot older in the actor looks a lot older in this than he does in the one 3 years before. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
having a partying too much or something. But yeah, it was odd. And at the end, there's like, Travis is with the woman.
Oh,
And
the
he gives her a
doctor.
peck on the cheek and says goodbye, and Bert's like, "You call that a goodbye kiss?"
Yeah.
And then he starts saying things like, "I've got balls of steel."
Yeah. He's basically telling him like, man up,
Man up, come on, that's not a goodbye kiss.
Yeah, that was weak, man.
Yeah, and so he does. Oh, also, the DARPA guy, when he sees the graboid, says, "You know what, Burt? You might be right about making these really good bioweapons." And Burt says, "Yeah, I thought you'd say that." And he basically gets one of the guys to fly a little plane with explosives into the mouth of the graboid, then blows it up, spitting it all over the. There's a lot of people being sprayed with disgusting fluids in this film, isn't there? Which is fun.
Oh, there are.
Don't
and
mind that.
They had
Don't
that
mind
kind
that.
of in the first one too, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they definitely go back to that in this. Like, all right, we're gonna throw slime on people.
Yeah, now apparently they wanted to first film this in the mountains of Bulgaria, right? So they're supposed to be in like Rocky Canada, far north in Canada. And I mentioned it starts with snow, but then the snow just disappears. doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does, which is
know.
unfortunate.
They weren't going to film in Bulgaria, but there was a massive blizzard, so they had to transfer the filming somewhere else. So they went back to South Africa, of all places, because they were used to it and all of that. So they basically tried to make the desert look like it was snowy.
That had to be challenging, I imagine. But I feel like it does work pretty well, particularly in the beginning. And as you say, we sort of lose that snow aesthetic more and more as the film goes on.
Yeah, they don't care, do they?
But
Don't care.
it would have been so cool to get more of like a vibe from like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing.
There was a few lines they were certainly trying to evoke other films. There's one point Travis says to one of them, "Boy, you are one ugly," and it sounds a bit like McCready, the phrase McCready uses
It's
in
true.
The Thing.
Yeah.
And there's also a bit where Travis is walking around. He said, come to the Arctic, have a few laughs, have a few drinks, which is Die Hard, right? It's basically
indeed.
Die Hard. So there was a few nods those ways. It
which is
kind of
clever.
made me laugh. However, I felt this was by far the weakest of the ones we've seen.
Me too. It's
honestly,
definitely, it's got a sci-fi original vibe to it.
Yeah.
More than any other.
Asylum, even, right? It's it's got that kind of. And I have to say, when I shut off about an hour in and just took a break, and at that point I was thinking, this is like a 3 out of 10, honestly. But actually, I quite enjoyed the final act and the dialogue.
Yeah,
a lot more after I had the break. I think the sheer intensity of it was really overwhelming. But after a bit of a break, I felt all right. So I actually improved my score quite a bit.
I wish I had taken I wish I had pulled a U mark and maybe taken a break kind of halfway through, because I think that would have been better. And I know when this comes on TV, it's probably got a lot of commercials, which helps like pace it out a little bit, right? But for us, watching these films much later on without any commercials or any padding, it is kind of a little overwhelming, I guess. And like you said, the score is all just action film based, and I don't know, it's okay, but it's not a great film, and I agree that it is the worst of the three.
Yeah, here's to give you a bit of balance. There's a few reviews here, so I'll get there's good as well as bad. So
there is, yeah.
Once it says this is, as one of the critics said, this is one to miss. The sleep-inducing borefest cannot be saved by Burt's over-the-top arrogance, even be saved by Burt's over-the-top arrogance and crankiness, which is one of the positives. Another said it's so bad it's nearly unwatchable, and it feels like it was made by people who absolutely loathe Tremors and want to insult the fans as much as possible. That's a bad review, right? But then there was another review where they said this was a fun change of setting without compromising the monster attacks, which is very generous, and also praised the performance of the cast, particularly Michael Gross and the girl that played Val's daughter, the one who was a wannabe monster hunter herself.
I thought she was good.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. And I kind of like her interactions with Burt, saying, my dad told me you were a badass. And he goes, yep, he's right. And all this. So that was all that. However, it hasn't put me off of wanting to see Shrieker Island, I have to say. I'm not looking at Shrieker Island thinking, oh, God, this is going to be hard work. But I'm aware it's the same director. But I've heard good things about Shrieker Island, so we'll see. We'll see.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see it for sure. But, yeah, this is... I just feel like overall it could have been done better. It's not terrible. It's not unwatchable. And I do disagree with the bad review. Like it's not that bad. It's not unwatchable or anything like that. It's just not. It's not great. It's certainly a sci-fi original that you would watch late at night on TV with some popcorn or a beer. And, you'd be like, this is all right.
Yeah, it was. I have to say, I was watching it and something was bothering me. I couldn't put my finger on it, and then suddenly it's like, oh man, it's the constant editing and music.
Yes.
Like it's a major scene when it isn't. It should be just done as like two people talking to get exposition done, rather than all this urgency.
Yes.
And once you spot it, it kind of takes over the viewing experience. It's like, oh man, why don't they just have a break from this?
Right.
I think me taking a break stopped me staying in that mindset. So maybe that was it.
Yeah, I think that probably helped, right?
What would you give this out of 10?
Ooh, like I said, it's watchable. It's decent, but it's definitely the weakest. So I think I'd give this one a 5.
Yeah.
How about you?
When I shut it off an hour in, it was like that. This is probably a 3, but we'll see how it turns out. But actually, I really warmed to it in the second half. And I was laughing quite a lot of the dialogue. We missed out a lot of funny dialogue. There's lots of funny dialogue going on throughout this. And it's not just Burt being super cranky, but that is funny. But it's just some of the dialogue, it felt a bit like some of it was ad-libbed, and it was quite good, and the bit where he just goes, "You're still alive? How come you never die? That just made me laugh. That he was
Yeah.
he was kind of surprised Burt was still alive. It
He's just
made
like
me laugh.
amazed. How do you always
Yeah.
survive?
Yeah, that kind of made me laugh. So yeah, I have already rated this on Letterboxd, and it was basically a 5 out of 10. So yeah, how what order would you put these films in? Would you think first is best, and
I
then
do.
6 is worst
Yeah.
in that specific order, or do you have a slightly different order?
Oh man, I really like the Western. I would say the first 2 are probably the best, and then what was it? 4 was the Western, right?
4 was the Western, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that was the next best. Then continue on, which would be 5 and 6.
So you'd rate it 1, 2, 4, 3, 5, 6.
Yes,
Mine's
yes.
very similar. I just put the
Brilliant.
Western higher. I would have the Western second only to the first one. I really, really like the Western one.
I do too.
So there is that to it. So essentially, the film series is almost the first is the best, and it just gets a little worse each time.
Yeah.
But for me, 4 kind of jumps out as a particularly good. As like the upper bit. It's a bit like Friday the 13th, isn't it? There's something about Friday the 13th 6, which is so much better than all the other ones around it. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like, how did they just hit it perfectly with number 6 in a franchise? It's so weird. And 4's a bit like that, but 4 is tonally quite a bit different from the not tonally.
It is.
Its setting is way a bit different
setting.
from the others. Yeah. I expect Shrieker Island's going to pretty much be the same template as 5 and 6, which is Burt gets called to go deal with Graboids somewhere else in the world. I expect that, especially Shrieker Island, right?
Right.
It almost sounds like a kaiju movie. That's that kind of title, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So I'm wondering if it's got a kaiju vibe, which would be awesome. Imagine a Graboids fighting Godzilla, say, or something.
I would be very much into that.
Amazing. Yeah, they'd get destroyed, but even so, it'd be kind of
Do you think Burt gets a mech?
Yeah, that would be a Pacific Rim type mech. That'd be kind of something.
They just totally go crazy in 6.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, no one know about it. I'm kind of juiced for the TV show as well, but 26 episodes, that requires commitment, and it's a marathon. It's not we can't just cram them and talk about them. There's no way. It's one just to watch and sort of see if it's any good, or possibly read up on and see if how it sounds, if it's incredible else. But if it's got Burt in, it's kind of my wheelhouse, I think.
Yeah, me too. And for our listeners, if you have any feedback, if you've seen the Tremors TV series, let us know what you think. And is it worth us covering here? Because that is a lot. but we love you guys, and we would do it for you.
Maybe we need to post something a few days before we record Shrieker Island to sort of say, right, we are now finishing this series. If anyone's got any thoughts, let us know, and we'll pick it up and see. We'll see. Yeah. All right then. Okay, that about winds this up. Just send our love to Becky and Ryan.
Indeed.
Do.
Indeed. Thank you guys, and we miss you both.
Yes.
And also, we mentioned the Facebook group. If you want to interact with us, we would love to have you on the UNH group on Facebook. That's facebook.com/groups/UN of Horror. And it's a lot of fun. We have a really, really great community there. And I always enjoy reading the post and seeing what everybody thinks. So we'll definitely put up something for Shrieker Island and kind of just get feedback for Shriekers as a whole, I think, as the series. And I'm wondering, after Shrieker Island, is there anything more they can do with Shriekers,
who knows? I mean, I know that Michael Gross is sort of up for it. He's pushing 75 now, so... or something like that. So that might be a little tricky. But, I can sort of see another Graboids film in the future. Maybe a completely different turning again. I can see anime or animated kind of stuff or stuff like that. The big turn it's a bit like Predator. Prey set it in the Old West and was really fresh. And Tremors 4 was a bit like that too. But Graboids could be in any era, right? Because it appears they've been around for a long, long time. So there's that possibility.
It is a beloved franchise. It hasn't had movies that have just been so bad they're unwatchable. So I feel like I feel like, yeah, it's, and it's something I'm probably going to come back to as well. I really do like it a lot. Tremors is good fun, good monster movie fun.
Yeah, we're not finished with it yet because we're
No,
doing
one
Treacle
more.
Island. So, you know.
Indeed. So stay tuned for that. And again, thanks everyone for listening. We really appreciate it. Mark, appreciate you taking the time. It's been fun as always, man. Your wealth of knowledge always blows my mind. So thank you again. I'm Jason.
And I'm Mark.
And we'll see you right back here for the next United Nations of Horror.
Made